My name is Oliver, and I joined the circus because I thought it'd be easy money. I'd been working carnivals since I was 17. Not the fun kind with clean lights and smiling families, but the back-end stuff. Loading crates, fixing generators, chasing off drunk teenagers trying to sneak in without tickets. Greasy fair food, crooked rides, long hours, no benefits. It wasn't a career. It wasn't even a job most of the time. You just drifted from one town to the next to guys who didn't like to talk about what they'd done before they found themselves elbow deep in mechanical snakes or rigging up tilt-a-whirls in the rain. I didn't have a plan. I told myself I was just doing this until something better came along. I used to carry books in my duffel, old paperbacks I found at thrift stores. I'd read them between shifts, or when the rides were slow. Sometimes, I'd sit on top of the funhouse roof with a sandwich and read until the sun went down. Made things feel normal, like I was still part of the real world. I liked nonfiction, science stuff, history, odd facts. I'd underline words I didn't know and look them up later, write them on napkins or scratch paper and try to remember them. I told myself I might go back to school someday, take, night classes maybe. My dad always said education was the only thing you could carry without a bag. But that was before the recruiter came. It was late summer, and I was doing lowdown at a washed-up fairground outside of Reno. A storm had blown through the night before, and half the tents were half collapsed in the mud. Everyone was tired, irritated, and broke. We'd just gotten stiffed on our last paycheck, and the boss had vanished. Again. And that's when I saw him. Red coat, black slacks, polished shoes that didn't sink into the mud like everyone else's. He was just standing by the fence, hands behind his back, like he was waiting for someone. He watched me for a long time before calling me over. Said he was hiring for a traveling circus. Said they needed labor. Stage hands, security, whatever. Said they paid cash at the end of every night. No strings, no contracts. Just show up, work, get paid. I didn't ask too many questions. And that was my first mistake. I packed my stuff, and I left with him that night. There wasn't much to pack. Just my duffel, the clothes I'd been wearing, and a backpack full of dented paperbacks. I didn't tell anyone goodbye. Didn't have anyone to tell. Felt, just like another job, another town, just another tent to set up and tear down. And maybe it would have been, if it were any other place. But nothing about this circus was normal. They called themselves Circus Defreak. I still remember the first time I saw it. We were driving through the desert in a rented van, just me and the guy in the red coat. He didn't talk much, just hummed sometimes under his breath and kept his eyes on the road. I fell asleep at some point. When I woke up, we weren't on the highway anymore. There was a big open field ahead, and the tents were already standing, striped black and gold, stretching out in all directions like they'd been there for years. I hadn't seen anyone set them up. There weren't any tracks or trailers, just tents and a few old-fashioned wagons. And that was when I started to feel it. Something off. Like I'd stepped into a place that wasn't supposed to be found. But I pushed the feeling down. I needed the money. I needed a place to sleep. And the guy in the red coat had already gotten out of the van and started walking. So I followed. The man in the red coat turned out to be the ringmaster. Everyone just called him that. Nobody ever asked for his real name, and he never offered it. The only clue anyone ever had were the initials AB, stamped at the bottom of the supply checks when someone went into town for food or fuel. The only thing I knew about him then was that he ran the whole show himself. Every tent, every act, every performer. He never yelled, never rushed, never looked tired. He'd walk through the grounds every night before the crowds came in, checking the ropes, the lights, the props. He wasn't like anyone I'd ever worked for. Most bosses at carnivals were loud, always chewing on a cigar or barking orders while pretending they were part of the action. The ringmaster didn't need to raise his voice. When he spoke, people just listened. The older workers treated him with a kind of careful respect. Some of them said they'd been working under him for decades, though he didn't look old enough for that to make sense. I figured they were exaggerating. My first night there, he handed me an envelope with my name on it, Oliver, written in neat handwriting. Inside was a folded bill and a small silver pin shaped like a crescent moon. "You wear it when you work. It tells the others you belong here, like family," he said with a smile. After the show ended that night, I saw him again. He was walking down the rows of tents, stopping by each worker, pressing money into their palms, the same quiet way he'd done with me. Nobody thanked him out loud, but everyone stood very still while he passed. It was like some kind of nightly routine. When he reached me, he nodded and handed me another folded bill. His hand felt dry, and his cologne smelled faintly like burnt sugar mixed with something else. I didn't think much of it at the time. It was late, and I was too tired to care about fancy perfume. The circus itself was unlike any show I'd ever seen. It didn't have a fixed address. One night, we'd be in an empty lot on the edge of a city, and the next we'd wake up surrounded by farmland or on an old fairground that looked abandoned for years. We'd set up after sundown, perform through the night, and by dawn, we'd be gone. The posters always looked the same no matter where we went. One night only, witness a heart-stopping performance. Someone always managed to get the word out fast. Crowds came. No tickets, no entry fees. Everything was free until 6 in the morning. That was the rule. My job was simple. I helped set up tents, carried boxes, repaired wiring, handled spotlights when performers needed it. Sometimes, I swept sawdust or held ropes for the acrobats. Nothing hard, but the schedule was strange. We'd start at sunset and end right before sunrise. No clocks anywhere. Only the ringmaster seemed to know the time. Paid us every night, always in cash, always exact. No one got shorted, no one got overpaid. There were no ledgers or receipts, just those neat envelopes with our names on them. A few of the older workers said they tried to ask him about taxes or contracts once, but they stopped bringing it up. The circus didn't have an address, a manager, or even a record online. Just appeared. And the audience didn't seem to care. They came dressed in their best clothes, laughing, eating caramel corn, taking pictures. By morning, they were gone. We'd tear everything down, pack the wagons, and by the time the sky lightened, it was like we were never there. Sometimes, when we were setting up in a new town, I'd look at the ringmaster and wonder how long he'd been doing this. He didn't seem to age, not in the way people do. His face looked the same every night, his suit always pressed, his gloves spotless. The older performers claimed he'd looked exactly like that since the day they met him. I didn't want to know the truth. My dad used to say, never look too close at a man who only deals in cash. I figured this was one of those times. And it wasn't a bad life, really. A bed to sleep in, food every night, steady work. For someone like me, that was enough. Or at least it was for a little while. Over time, I started picking up on rules. Not the kind you find in an employee handbook. There wasn't one. But the kind people learn quietly by watching. You notice things if you paid attention. Certain tents stayed closed between shows. Certain performers didn't like to be looked at too long. Some names weren't spoken out loud. Some corners of the grounds were avoided altogether, even when the wagons were tight on space. Nobody told me any of this straight out. It was more like you just knew when to step back, when to keep your voice down, when to look away. If you didn't, you learned fast, or you wouldn't last. Wasn't like the old carnival jobs. There, people were rough, sure, drunk, weird, sometimes dangerous, but they were still people. This place wasn't like that. Circus Defreak wasn't a circus full of strange people. It was a circus full of monsters. And there were rules if you wanted to survive it. Rule number 1. Never fall in love with a mermaid. This isn't the most important rule, it's just the first one I learned. I'd been with the circus for maybe 5 days when I saw him. 4 mermaids in a long tank behind the freak show tent. The tank's built low into the ground and stretches along the back like an old swimming pool, only deeper. It's got these curved glass sides, thick as a brick wall, and the water is greenish with floating strands of something like seaweed. If you walk around the back of the tent, you'll hear them before you see them. Slow, echoing splashes, like something shifting just under the surface. They're beautiful. I won't lie about that. They look like something pulled out of a dream, or a magazine ad from 100 years ago. Pale skin, smooth and cold-looking, long black hair that floats behind them like it's always caught in a current. Their tails are dark silver with flashes of blue, like wet coins. Their eyes don't blink, and when they look at you, it's like they're seeing something far away, or maybe seeing through you altogether. A lot of the new guys stare, it's hard not to. They press their faces to the glass, maybe toss in some leftover food from the crew tent, crust of bread, sandwich scraps. The mermaids will look up, move close to the surface, and sometimes they smile. It's not a big smile, just a soft little expression, like they're thankful, like they're gentle. One of them, the smallest one, with white scars down her left arm, even waved at me my first night. That's how they get you. They know how to look harmless. They know how to make you feel like they need something from you. Kindness, protection, whatever you want to believe. The ringmaster was the one who told me the truth. I'd asked him offhand why they weren't part of the main show. He laughed and said, "The real show happens after hours, if someone can pay for it." I didn't get it at first. I thought maybe they sang or danced, or something private for high-paying customers. Wasn't until the second week that I saw one of the men disappear. He was some businessman, fancy coat, shiny shoes, smelled like cologne and liquor. The kind of guy who laughed too loud at his own jokes and looked past you when you talked, like you weren't worth his time. Rumor had it, he ran some seedy business out of Vegas and was in town for vacation. He'd been tried more than once for animal abuse too, according to the papers anyway, but always got off somehow. I saw him earlier that evening at the front gate, kicking a stray dog out of his way and calling it a stupid mutt, like it had personally offended him. He came in late, after the lights had gone down and the public had gone home. I saw him slip behind the freak show tent with a rolled up wad of bills and a grin. The ringmaster followed him in. and nobody saw the businessman come back out. The next morning, I was sweeping the gravel along the main path when I saw something strange in the mermaid tank. First, I thought it was just rocks. Then I looked closer. There were bones under the plants. Actual bones. Ribs, finger joints, a jaw half hidden behind a curtain of green. Coins glittered between them like decorations. I asked one of the rigging crew, a guy who'd been with the circus for years, if I was seeing what I thought I was. He just nodded and said, "They eat people. Thought you knew." Then he went back to tightening bolts like it was nothing. And that was when it really hit me. This was not a regular place with strange people. It was a place for real monsters. And the ringmaster, he didn't stop it. In fact, he sold it. He called it special time. Visitors who could pay enough were given private access to the tank. Most of them thought it was something romantic, something exclusive, an hour with a beautiful creature. I think maybe they believed it was some kind of exclusive show, or maybe a photo op. But the mermaids weren't interested in conversation. They waited. They pressed their faces to the glass, quiet and lovely, until the door opened and the humans stepped inside. Then they pulled them into the water. Fast. One sharp splash and the person was gone. If they screamed, nobody heard. Or maybe nobody wanted to. The tank is deep. Deeper than it looks. It's designed that way, so the body sinks fast, so the feeding stays out of sight. People ask about the missing guests sometimes, especially the rich ones who come in late and never leave. The ringmaster always has an answer. He says it plainly, and nobody questions him. Somehow, he always knows who'll be missed and who won't. He has a soft spot for animals. He feeds the strays behind the tents, and he once helped a wounded fox without saying a word. But he doesn't feel the same way about people who step onto his circus grounds thinking they own the place. Especially the greedy ones. He says people like that spend their lives eating everything around them. Resources, opportunities, people. So when the mermaids drag them under, he calls it fair. They eat, and then they get eaten. That's how the ringmaster sees it. Nobody argues. Yeah, so that's rule 1. Never fall in love with a mermaid. Look, they don't love you, okay? They're just hungry, starving. Every time I pass their tank now, I look away. I don't wave, I don't feed them. I don't meet their eyes. That's what they want. And if you're the type of person who starts thinking, maybe you're different, maybe they won't hurt you, maybe they love you, well, that's the kind of thinking that gets your bones stacked under seaweed like the rest of them. The rules aren't all bad. Some of them can even work in your favor if you pay attention. In fact, this next one, you might actually like it. There's someone here on the circus grounds you should meet, especially if you're ever in a bind about your future. Rule 2. Do talk to the madam if you have the time. She's easy to miss if you don't know where to look. Her tent is small, purple, and set back past the doctor's trailer, little off the main path where the grass grows taller. Most people pass it without noticing. There's no sign out front, no lights, no music, just a wooden post with a hand-painted crescent moon on it. Inside, it's quiet. The air smells like old tea leaves and wax. No mirrors, no stage tricks, no glowing fog machines like the rest of the circus. Just shelves of jars, stacks of books, and her crystal ball on a table in the center. And inside that ball is the Madam Rose Murda, the resident fortune teller. She's a floating head. Just that. A round, pale face inside the glass, blinking slowly, like she's in no hurry at all. Her hair floats gently around her cheeks like it's underwater. Her eyes follow you when you move. She used to be an innkeeper in some far-off place, a town of witches or something like that. She never gives many details. Says she took in the wrong guest one winter and ended up like this. Now, she tells fortunes for a living, reads people's thoughts when they walk through her tent, and hands out advice whether you ask for it or not. But she's kind. Madame Rose Murta always remembers my name. She calls me Ollie in this warm, familiar voice, like I'm her grandson or some neighbor kid she used to babysit. The first time she said it, I almost corrected her. Told her it was Oliver, but I let it go. Felt nice, like something I hadn't heard in a long time. Her tent is one of the few safe places on the circus grounds. It's the only place I can sit down without looking over my shoulder. Nobody bothers you there. None of the creatures come poking around, and the ringmaster never steps foot inside. Nobody knows why. Some say they had a falling out years ago. Others think he's just afraid of her. Either way, he keeps his distance, and that's good enough for me. I go there when I need to think. This time, she didn't even wait for me to say hello. Ollie, when are you gonna leave this place and do something with your life? She said, before I'd stepped all the way inside. I laughed and dropped into the wooden chair across from her table. The legs wobbled a little, like always. Yeah, nice to see you too, Rose Murda. She smiled, slow and wide. Her teeth were small but sharp. Don't dodge the question. Well, you're still here, I began. If it's so bad, why aren't you out there doing something with your life? I said. She tilted slightly in the glass like she was shrugging. Oh, I've got a debt to pay. The kind that can't be settled with money. But you, Ollie, you're free, she said. I didn't say anything right away. I scratched at the edge of the table with my fingernail and looked around the shelves. The jars were labeled in a language I couldn't read. One of them had something floating in it that looked like a pickled bat. I've just never made this much money before, especially not for doing work like this. It's not hard stuff. I set up the lights, I haul crates. It's simple, I said finally. She nodded. That's how it starts. Looks easy, feels good. It promises a way out. Then one day you wake up and realize it's not a job. It's a trap. I'm not trapped, I replied. Rose Murda didn't argue. She just looked at me, quiet, waiting for me to keep talking. Look, I've worked worse jobs, okay? This place is strange, yeah, but it's steady. I eat, I sleep, I get paid in cash. And I don't have to deal with the outside world. No landlords, no bosses breathing down my neck, no resumes or uniforms or fake smiles. I know it's weird, but it's simple, I said. She didn't blink. Pain likes to disguise itself as comfort. You should remember that. I gave her a look. Do you always have to talk like it's the end of the world? She grinned. That's my job, dear. I'm your elder and a resident fortune teller. You'd be a fool not to listen to the floating head in the crystal ball, Ollie. I couldn't help but smile. I can't argue with that. I looked down at the ball, and for a second, her face looked older, more tired, and I briefly wondered how many people like me she'd given that same advice to, and how many of them actually followed it. I don't even know where I'd go, I began. It's not like I have people waiting for me anywhere. I don't have a home, I don't even have a car. Nobody checks on me. The outside, it's not exactly begging me to come back, I admitted. She smiled again. You don't need a map, just a decision. And we sat in silence for a while after that. There wasn't any sound in her tent, except for the soft ticking of an old clock somewhere. I didn't want to look at it. I knew if I stayed too long, I'd start to agree with her. Before I left, she gave me the usual warning. This place makes promises, big ones. Tells you it can take the pain away. It says you'll earn your freedom if you just keep working. But freedom doesn't come from working for people like him, she said. Yeah, I know, I replied. Do you? Because most people don't realize they're trapped until the doors are already locked. I stood there for a second. Then I gave her a small smile. You want anything from the bakery tent? I think they've got those croissants you like. Her eyes brightened. That's my Ollie. Yeah, don't forget the flaky crust this time. Not the dense ones, those are an insult. I would never, I said, already turning to go. She didn't press the issue again. She didn't have to. I heard her voice behind me, light and fond. Come back when you're ready to talk properly, she said. I lifted a hand in a lazy wave and stepped outside. Rule number 3. Never stay for too long. Most people don't realize they've stayed for too long till it's already happened. That's how it works here. Slowly, little by little, things start to feel comfortable. You get used to the noise at night, the strange faces, the long hours. At first, everything is new and strange, but eventually it feels like routine, like home. That's how they get you. I've heard it called different things. The hooks, the charm, the lull. But the real name is an infernal contract. That's what the old book says. It's a deal. You get something you want, something big. And in return, the circus takes something from you. Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes you don't even notice until years have passed. Then one day you look up and you realize the door's been shut behind you for a long time. For me, it was money and belonging. I've always felt like an outsider. I was the weird kid in school who liked books and never spoke up. I worked bad jobs for years where nobody even remembered my name. I was always just passing through, never worth much to anyone. But here, people knew me. People needed me. They called me Ollie, laughed at my jokes, saved me a plate at dinner. For once in my life, I felt like I was a part of something. And I was getting paid a lot better than I ever had. 3 times what I'd made working double shifts at the county fairgrounds. It's not just the money, though. It's the idea that maybe this place is a stepping stone. I start thinking, what if I just stay a little longer? Just until I've saved up enough to go back to school. Just until I can afford a place of my own. Just until I figure out what comes next. That's the trap. It starts with logic. You tell yourself it's smart. You tell yourself it's temporary. Feels good. You're eating hot meals. You got a roof, a bed, a name. You're not just some extra on the sidelines. You matter. And the more you tell yourself you're doing it for the future, the more you start to believe it. But this place doesn't want you to leave. The circus runs on these contracts, not written ones, but real ones, tied to something darker. The kind of deals devils used to make in old stories. A gift for a price. And the longer you stay, the deeper in you go. Some people here used to have lives outside, families, dreams. You ask them now, and they don't even remember what they were saving for. They just remember the day they stopped thinking about leaving. I still think about it. Most days, at least. I still think I'll get out eventually. I'll pack up my duffel, take the cash I've saved, and head for the nearest city. I'll find a small apartment, register for night classes, maybe buy a cheap couch. Something normal. But there's a part of me that wonders if I've already stayed too long. Madame Rosmerta warned me. She said the circus makes big promises, that it starts out feeling like a second chance. Then it sinks in its teeth. By the time you realize what you've given up, it's already yours no longer. And yet I'm still here. The ringmaster found me alone near the edge of the grounds, standing behind the generator wagon with my hands in my pockets. The sky was still dark, but the sun was close. Just enough light to make the tents look faded and worn around the edges. He didn't say anything at first. Just walked up in that quiet way of his and stood beside me, his red coat sharp against the gray morning. He held his top hat in one hand, the other tucked behind him, like always. I didn't look at him right away. I kept my eyes on the tents, on the dim glow of lanterns being taken down one by one. The mermaids ate someone new last night. Poor fellow practically dove in. Hardly made a sound. We're bringing in werewolves with the next shipment, too. The crowd's been asking for something a little wilder, he said. He adjusted his gloves, brushing a speck of dust from the cuff, and smiled, like it was just good business. I didn't answer. He stepped forward, just enough to look at me directly. His face was pale, clean, without a single crease or blemish. He looked like he'd been carved from something hard and cold, but he smiled all the same. I hope you're settling in. People seem to really like you, Ollie. You're useful. Steady hands. No complaints. Easy to work with. That's rare around here, he said. I didn't come here to stay forever, I replied. No. You came for my money. But tell me, when was the last time somebody called you by name before this? He asked. I didn't have an answer for that. You're one of us. A circus freak, through and through. That's not a bad thing. This is a place for people just like you. people who don't quite fit in anywhere else," he said, with grand outstretched arms like he was headlining another show. He turned and looked back at the rows of tents. A few workers were still packing things up, dragging ropes, hammering stakes loose. "So what if we kill people? Most of them deserve it, don't they? The greedy, the cruel, the careless. The circus never eats more than it needs to," he said, looking out over the tents. Then he turned to me and smiled, his lips pulled back just enough to show a row of jagged, yellowed teeth. "Out there, you're just another boy in a line. But here, you're part of something that matters. A family," he said. He said it like it was a kindness, like he was offering me a home. But I'd seen too much. I'd seen bones at the bottom of the mermaid tank. I'd seen people disappear behind tents and never return. I'd seen what happened to those who stayed too long, chasing promises that turned to chains. "This place isn't right," I began. "It's not home, and it's not even real." He didn't argue. He didn't try to stop me or change my mind. Instead, he gave a little bow, low and elegant, and set his top hand gently on his head. "Well, perhaps one day we'll see eye to eye. Until then." He opened his arms, as if presenting the tents around us. "Welcome to the Circus Defreak. We're happy to have you as part of the family," he said with a flourish. Then he walked off, slow and easy, back into the winding paths of the camp, disappearing behind a line of wagons. I stayed there for a while, listening to the last few crates being locked, the footsteps of tired workers heading for the bunks. On my way back, I passed the main poster again. It was nailed to a crooked wooden board near the front gate, the paper slightly curled from dew. The same design as always, black and gold lettering, bold and dramatic. "One night only. Witness a heart-stopping performance." Below that, in the tiniest font you can imagine, barely visible unless you're really looking, it said, "Free until 6 a.m. After that, you must pay a price equal to all you've consumed." I stood there longer than I meant to, just staring at it. My dad used to tell me there's one piece of advice that never gets old. No matter where you end up in life, always read the fine print. Well, it took me 6 years to get out. 6 years of working quietly, keeping my head down, doing just enough to be useful, but not enough to be missed. 6 years of saving every dollar, mapping every exit, and pretending I didn't see what I saw. There was a murder, a bad one, the kind I'll explain some other time. And that was the night I knew I couldn't stay any longer. I packed light, didn't say goodbye. Just took my duffel and walked until the lights of the circus disappeared behind me. My boots carried me across 2 counties before I even thought about stopping. And even then, I didn't sleep. The circus doesn't chase you when you leave. That's the trick. It just waits. It knows most everyone comes back. but I'm not coming back. I'm writing this now in the back of a freight train. Car smells like rust and grain. It's quiet, except for the clatter of the tracks. I've tucked this journal behind some crates, wedged between two boxes marked for delivery. I don't know who will find it. Maybe nobody will. But maybe it'll be someone like me. Young, broke, tired, and looking for something that feels like a home. If that's you, if you're reading this, I'm begging you to get out while you still can. You'll see the poster. It'll say what it always says. One night only. Witness a heart-stopping performance, free until 6 a.m. That part's true. But there's the rest. There's that tiny print. After that, you will be required to pay a price equal to all you've consumed in body, in spirit, or in soul. A week ago, I got a letter, handwritten in dark blue ink, folded into a purple envelope that smelled like incense and bakery butter. No stamp, no return address. I still don't know how it found me. It was from Madame Rosemurda. She said her debt is finally paid. She didn't say how. She just said she's opening something new. A little shop behind a gas station on a desert road halfway across the country. She said she needs someone to fix the lights and sweep the porch and keep her company when things get slow. I'm going. I don't know what I'll find there. Maybe cobwebs and places Rosemurda can't reach. But it's better than staying one day longer in a place that never meant to let me go. If you're smarter than I was, you won't go looking for the circus. Especially not this one. You won't try to prove you're different. You will listen to the ones who barely made it out. And if nothing else sticks, remember the rules at least. They're simple. Don't fall in love with a mermaid. Talk to fortune tellers if you have the time. And never stay too long in places you don't belong. Some people, like the ringmaster, will promise you the world. Lights, laughter, a place to belong. Just make sure you know what it will cost.
Hey, huge thank you to all my patrons. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, there's a link in the description. I hope you enjoyed the story, and have a good night.